What is reverse grip?
Why is reverse grip?
Holding this sword upside down is a concept that's existed since sticks were invented.
It's been around.
It was definitely tried out with swords, but there's a notable lack of any instructional material showing it for anything other than extraordinarily niche circumstances.
It's almost exclusively used when you're fighting in a position of disadvantage or you have no other choice than to grip the sword like this.
It's not known when the first fictional depiction of reverse grip surfaced, but Asian martial arts media has been using it for quite a while.
The blind swordsman Zatoichi is depicted using it in a fictional story as far back as the 1940s.
This technique is usually associated with Asian martial arts, often being used by ninjas or unconventional samurai.
The defining characteristic of the people who use reverse grip is that they're different. Usually they're anti-establishment or go against the grain of society or in some way are unorthodox. See the above example of the blind swordsman.
This has continued to be the major narrative tool that reverse grip is used for. Almost every character who uses it in fiction is in some way different or special.
Ahsoka, Starkiller, The Witcher, and the Netflix series. Name someone who uses reverse grip and you will see that they're an edgelord or a rebel.
But it goes further than the metaphor of the outsider. It's also visually striking. It's a quick way to identify an important character in a film, TV show, anime, comic book, manga, or whatever visual media you're using.
A character using reverse grip stands out amongst everybody else who's using more conventional sword techniques. You don't even have to tell the audience to watch that character, they automatically will.
From a choreography standpoint, reverse grip is, pardon the pun, a double-edged sword. When a character uses reverse grip, by necessity they will have different choreography than the audience is used to.
However, because reverse grip is a martial arts nightmare, your actor is actually hampered significantly and they require their co-star to make up for their deficiencies.
We do have to give reverse grip some credit. It can be very useful if you're doing acrobatics. Having a sword out of the way when you're doing spins and flips makes it feel a lot safer.
But acrobatics are just as useless as reverse grip when it comes to real fights. So it makes sense that they go hand in hand.
Some claims have been made that reverse grip is easier to film because it gets two actors closer in the frame, but realistically this just isn't a concern.
Shortened positions, stepping offline, and a bunch of other tricks have been incredibly successful since the beginning of Hollywood.
Reverse grip doesn't change framing enough for it to be a viable reason to make your character fight exclusively or even mostly in reverse grip. In my opinion, it's always character driven, not production driven.
So as we alluded above, reverse grip isn't what we'd call practical.
Despite what all the choreographers and storytellers would lead you to believe, it is not the high-risk, high-reward maverick fighting style depicted on the silver screen.
It's actually just bad.
We're gonna explain a bit about the mechanics of swordsmanship so you understand why reverse grip doesn't really work. The first and most basic is the way that the wrist work. The wrist likes to move in this direction, but it does not like to work in this direction. This is about as far back as my wrist can go without bending the elbow, but my wrist can go all the way to here normally.
Your wrist is also stronger going this way than going that way. It's easy to deliver force here, but it's a lot harder to generate force in this direction.
The next big problem is range. If I'm holding my sword normally, I can go into a handshake grip and extend all the way to here. This is a lot of range. But if I turn it over into reverse grip, by necessity, I must come to here. First of all, this is a pretty painful position on my hand, but I've also lost a lot of range. That's 6 inches or more.
And that's a big difference when life and death is decided by inches.
The next problem is maneuverability. When I'm holding a sword like this, my wrist has a pretty good amount of mobility to it. I can cut in a bunch of different angles, and I can easily move from angles like this without hurting myself.
But when you swap to reverse grip, your mobility is severely limited. I can no longer really do all these cuts from all these angles because your wrist just doesn't work this way. You really only have this ascending cut.
So we've talked about offense, what about defense? Well, for the same reasons that this is bad at offense, it's really bad at defense. You're not strong in this position, and that means all of your parries are severely compromised.
In a forward grip, it's really easy to access all my parries. In reverse grip, these parries become a lot harder to get to and a lot less structured.
Another big thing is this isn't the way the sword is designed to be used. I mean, look at it. The guard is down here. It's even more pronounced on the longsword. Your hand is extraordinarily exposed, and in reverse grip sparring matches, one of the #1 targets is the hand. In fact, this person hardly ever even gets into distance because their hand gets picked off so quickly. The last thing to talk about is the chain of the body and force generation. When we're holding our sword normally, it's very easy for us to access all of the muscles of our body to do these big, powerful movements because that's the way our body is set up. That's why the sword was designed this way, to complement the way our body moves.
In reverse grip, I can't really use the whole body to generate force. Even trying these downward angles, I can really only twerk the hips, and that's about it.
You have to remember, the sword was designed from the ground up to complement the way the human body moves, and it was intended to be held in this direction to do so.
You wouldn't hold a gun upside down, would you? We've done a number of tests over the years showing the pitfalls of reverse grip. Go check out this playlist.
Any blade held in reverse grip rapidly loses utility once it extends past the length of a dagger.
In knife fighting, there are a number of uses for reverse grip, though forward grip is still superior most of the time. For very close grappling situations, reverse grip can give you additional options.
So knowing that reverse grip is bad for martial arts, why are people still so in love with it?
Even after multiple people have spoken about how it's just not useful, you still see directors putting it in films, and you still see fans defending it to the hilt. More sword puns.
The answer is people are highly invested in their fantasy media.
Fantasy is escapism. In a world that is harsh and cruel, we all need a little bit of escapism.
Anime, video games, TV shows, and other media serve an important purpose.
Because so many of these characters who use reverse grip are in some way positioned against figures of authority, many people gravitate towards them and live vicariously through them as they clash against the man, the authority.
You can't tell your boss to go f off, but you can watch Ahsoka tell the Jedi Order that they suck.
You can't murder unreasonable people in your life, but you can watch Geralt slaughter all of the bandits in Blaviken who are being ridiculously unreasonable.
It's cathartic and people need a release. Unfortunately, some people can't differentiate between fiction and reality.
The reality is reverse grip with a sword doesn't work. And that's not an attack on any of these characters.
They're fantasy characters. They're not bound by the rules of reality, but people don't want to hear that.
Either because they love the character or they consciously or unconsciously aspire to be more like that character, they see this criticism as a personal attack.
So the final question is, why does any of this matter?
And the answer is, it doesn't.
Nowadays, no one needs to learn how to use a sword to defend themselves, so they can have as many misconceptions about how swords work as they want to.
However, we have a YouTube channel about how swords really work, so we can't just leave it alone.
People can choose to be informed or misinformed, and that's fine. We're just here to give you the real info.
Do with it what you will.
Thanks for watching, and we hope you liked the video. If you like our work, please consider donating just $1 a month to our Patreon. It's a huge help, and it keeps us making more videos for you guys.